All right.
Okay, this is the May 26th meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I will now call the roll for attendance. Dave Delmonica.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Gene Keys. Absent. Sam Strife.
Here.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have the quorum present. Mr. Chairman.
Let's, we got
Some
signed.
administrative items I present. Request for payroll authorization. And for your review, my hours. And if I may, an expense voucher, so leave it over for me. And that's the backup receipts. Oh, there's two on there?
Oh. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay, I don't. Had them both at once, so I can look at the same.
Save a sheet of paper.
Previously, I had sent around a poll requesting commissioners who might be able to indicate if they could attend a possible joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. The three dates were June 1st, June 15th, and June 29th. Don't mean to put anybody on the spot here, but Mr. Page, you didn't get any indication back from you?
What days?
Those are Monday night selectmen.
They're all Mondays?
Yes, they're all Mondays.
I should be able to make a Monday, any one of those.
Okay. Commissioner Garner.
I'm trying to think, I don't see any problem with any of those dates right now.
Okay. It seems sort of the preference has been leaning towards the 29th in regards to two folks who indicated that if need be, they would be able to attend.
Well, we certainly don't all have to be there. It would be nice if some of us came, but
No.
basically it's being noticed just so if a quorum shows up, it's a legal meeting. Not,
Right.
it's really the only reason. Their input. I know I can't do the first, but other than that, I think I said it was okay.
You indicated the possibility of the 29th.
Right.
Not a firm commitment, just that one. So-
Right.
So I was on, so I'll communicate that.
What did I say about the 29th?
Every single one, you said if need be.
29th might be dicey.
Put that in for what seems to be the majority choice. Just briefly, as a status update and for something to be thinking of a little bit. I've completed substantially the opening of Smith Lane all through the Girl Scout property. And as part of the effort now to start erecting signage where Smith Lane exits the Girl Scout facilities, the majority of what is identified as the camp portion of the property, I had some vehicle exclusion signs. Since that will be one of the terms of the anticipated conservation restriction, is not to have motorized vehicle use through there, not that it's really a traveled way to begin with, but so I have started to do that.
Back when the two bridges flooded out on either side of my house,
Right.
the police suggested that we take that to get out, to escape
Well,
the Haverhill.
The fire chief and I did a reconnaissance on that and ascertained that it would be possible to get emergency vehicles through there, but it was not looked at. It's fine right now because it's dry, but that's not normally the case with all of it.
Is it open enough for emergency vehicles?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause that's a
absolutely.
good thing to have in your back pocket in case of a,
Understood.
yeah.
There used to be a metal fence across about a third in from Weathersfield Street with posts on either
At the
side.
well, yeah, there's only a post on the hinge side. Apparently the ATVers took out the post on the other side, but it was only a gate for like a paddock. So actually the commission should think about the possibility of a gate being erected at the interface that's the pinching point where the majority of the camp facilities are and stops, and then where Smith Lane continues down through the bulk of the property that we've been talking about as being a conservation area. There is kind of a narrowing. There's two stone walls come in, and there's like a 21 foot opening there.
People used to horseback ride up in there through that lane.
Oh,
I don't know if we want to foreclose that possibility with a gate.
there are ways of putting up a gate, as we've done at Boxford Road, that allows horse or bicyclists to go by the side, so that can be done that way. You may remember that it informed the commission there was a latrine or outhouse out by the ball field that had a large oak tree on it. No longer, thanks to my wife and I, it no longer has an oak tree on it anymore.
Now it has a little pile of oak logs next to it.
But it is currently being utilized for housing.
By a, what was it? You told me.
A Phoebe,
A Phoebe. A
or
Phoebe
a
and her
Phoebe
babies.
nest, and two or three fledglings. It's hard to say because of all the fluff. There's at least two beaks showing in the picture, so. Showers and restroom facilities. Some of the other buildings may have, because the administration building definitely does. I think, I can't remember what they called it. Rocky Ledge
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Lodge or something, I
Right.
think, and the Rangers maintenance building, those, I think, both have toilet facilities. It's entirely possible either one or both of the lodges. I'm not intimately acquainted with the insides of the buildings. I know one of them, the one that's near the Ranger maintenance in the administration building. I believe that's got a little kitchen area in it too, so I would suspect that it probably also has toilet facilities and is connected to a septic system. Okay. Just wanted to-
Which this one is not, right? This is just a pit.
This is a pit, yeah. And there is another one of those, there's another building exactly like that down towards the tenting platforms. There isn't a memo prepared for the first item. There is some legal notes.
This is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission for the 745 item. In accordance with the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, May 26th, 2015 at 7:45 PM at Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent application filed by Susan Newt, Route 1 Realty Trust, for proposed demolition of the existing building, gas station, and remediation of site per release abatement measure plan, RTN number 3-31368, possibly in the DEP approved groundwater protection area zone 2 at 165 Newburyport Turnpike, map 14, parcel 13. No memo, right? So just to bring the rest of the members up to date, this is of course the Veterans Gas Station at the corner. Sort of suddenly they decided to decommission this, and the way it played out is they had arranged for the people to remove the underground storage tanks, and they were coming, essentially the next day
They were coming the
when you
next
heard
day.
about it.
Yes.
So Brent and I discussed it and decided that under the circumstances, getting those done was worthy of an emergency certification on that piece of it only. So that's why that happened without it coming before the board, even though it's in zone 2. So we did that, but what Brent recommended was that we hold up the rest of the demolition pending application that we're, pending filing the application that we have today. Which is
So
why
that's-
nothing's happening at the site at the moment.
So it's actually probably a good segue to the fact that this is a local resource area only, so this is only jurisdictional under the bylaw. It's
Surprisingly
not
enough.
jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act. So actually, this would be a good opportunity to request ratification. Whoops. Ratification of the issued emergency certification,
Right.
which I use the Wetlands Protection Act form, but it's not going to the department because it's not in a regulated resource area.
Right. So even though it's it looks exactly like the
Well, it is.
DEP form, it says at the top, Conservation Department of the Town of Raleigh. So, unless anybody has any concerns about it, although it's certainly too late to put the tanks back.
Well, the site was already being, this is the finalization of their response to a leak in a fuel line that went from the tank to one of their service pumps. So it's covered under the Massachusetts contingency plan, and it's also, I heard reference when Doug read the legal ad to the land plan, which again is prepared for a response to the existence of soil contamination and the mitigation and hopefully cleanup of the site.
They're gonna put a new one?
No, no,
Not saying-
we'll have to talk to
Haven't said,
the,
yeah.
Well, it's
we'll-
decommissioned.
we'll open
for
this up
good.
to the
There's
applicant.
nothing else, no new gas station, correct?
You know, I think they'd have to start a new application to do it, and I don't think that we get permitted in zone 2,
Yeah, correct.
so, yeah. That's right. No, they haven't at least told us what their plans are.
Okay, so that's.
Certainly changing things up at Cumberland Farm.
Certainly, something's going in. It's
So
a
that
prime site.
dispenses with the emergency certifications. Is there anyone here to address the commission in regards to the application tonight?
Yes, my name is Gaston Blel.
Okay,
I worked for Mrs. Noonan for 17 years,
okay,
and I have run that gas station, Veterans or Mobile or Rowley Gas Exchange for 10 years.
okay.
The reason why we are doing this, because actually we have problem with the soil and the building is falling apart. And yes, they're gonna be putting a brand new station. The whole issue why it's not been mentioned or they didn't further is depends on how bad was the soil and when we go into this cleanup and this situation before they address
Okay.
everything. And today I'm representing them for Mrs. Noonan because they're out in Florida. So that's why I came in front of you guys
Okay.
to address the whole situation and what's going on with that building.
Okay,
Yeah. So before 5 years, I don't know if you have guys have record, they was planning to sell it to US Gas. But the reason why they didn't buy it because of the contamination.
no,
And they tried to sell it to somebody else this year to buy the land to use it. He backed out because when they did the test, they have the soil is contaminated. And DEP and all of these guys say it's time. And those tanks have been there for quite, I don't know, maybe 50 years or more. And they were really bad.
Yeah.
They even have pictures of them.
okay,
So it's time to go. And it's time to do. And we have problem issue, I think 2 years ago, 3 years, when we have that, one of the pipes explode, was a big mess.
right,
And still the soil is contaminated.
okay.
from-
So when you're talking about soils, you're talking about contamination of soils, not the structural considerations of the building, which I understand was also falling
one of the
apart.
pipes that had the problem 2 years ago, it's right under the building.
Under the building.
Right by the door of the main entrance where, this is the building, you have the ones coming to the street, then you have the other door of the garage towards facing McDonald, there
Yes.
where that pipe
The
was
biggest,
broken,
the big door.
and everything is sit right on there, even when the guy did the test this couple of weeks when we took the tanks out.
Okay,
Yeah, so basically some of that soil under the building has to go. And we did some tests again, I don't know if this lady, we checked the building for asbestos and other stuff, I have all the report. But I requested her to send, have all the documents here
okay.
and all that stuff. And
So the only, Brent, if I'm understanding what we're doing today, we're just being asked to permit the demolition of the structure.
yes,
Right,
Yes.
and more than likely, the excavation and removal of contaminated soils from the site.
Okay,
because now is the best time according to the guy, because the weather is good. We don't wanna wait for, because they were planning a couple of months before, but because of this weather, this heavy snowstorm and stuff, that's why
okay.
it dragged we up to this town to do it. And Noonan's wanna get the outfit, whether they gotta invest, because still they're talking with US Gas, if still they gotta come in and take it over with seeing all what we have, or if they don't wanna do it, then Noonan will continue doing it, build it up back as a gas station. So that's why everything is not like brought forward to you guys.
Yeah.
But right now they wanna base on, cleaning the soil, get everything open so everybody can say, hey, there it is.
Okay.
Couple of record keeping things. Did you bring proof of the certified mailing to the abutters for this application? Mr. Oliver?
Yeah, it's supposed to send it to you, sir. If you didn't send it, I will
I
just,
haven't received it.
okay, well, I'll get in touch with him so he can send it to you, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'll get it from
And I
him
also
already.
don't think I've got any record of you or your name. Would you be so kind as to spell your name, or are you turning in anything that's got your name and contact information on it.
It's right on the top side. And my email address is there too, sir.
All right, very good. All right, so, yeah, so would need proof that the abutters got notified. We've already, the newspaper provided the ad to us, so we have the ad. And did you say you were turning in tonight
Yes, I brought
the
this.
inspection report of
The
the
test
building?
of the building, the
for
whole,
the
yeah, the
asbestos?
whole analysis from the paint, the asbestos,
Okay.
whatever, it's all
Okay,
right.
and this is our copy for the file?
Yes, I'll just make copy for myself, that's it.
Oh, you don't have a copy yet?
No, she just
Okay.
sent it to me, so I said, let
Okay.
me bring it to you, so you can, that's the
All right.
lady in charge, and she said, if you need any more questions, her information is all there.
Okay. So the only, well, so there's already a plan for cleanup remediation of this site, and for, I have to sign off on the demolition permit, which is what started this process, was because when I investigated the site's in zone 2, and obviously demoing the building and digging all the soil out of the ground would definitely alter, fill, dredge, or remove the site, which is our criteria for needing permit issuance from the commission. In regards to conditions, though, because it's mostly soil excavating, and the emergency certification already gave them a responsibility for establishing erosion control. I should probably show you that from the tank removal, we've already established a stockpile. We identified a catch basin in the road that goes through the drive-through of McDonald's that is supposedly McDonald's responsibility for maintaining, and you can probably see from the picture that it doesn't show signs of having been maintained in recent memory. In fact, they didn't even know it was there until I showed them where it was. Since I kind of had the advantage of knowing that it was there. So otherwise, I don't think I would have seen it either. So that is protected by
The erosion control.
either some erosion control, or they actually put a silt sack in it. I don't remember which.
Those are treads, those are truck treads?
Yeah.
So they've been driving over.
They've been
Well,
driving.
it's all, well,
Can't even see.
but
it.
you can drive over catch basin grates, I mean.
Yeah,
Just compacts the soil.
But that just plugs it up in that particular
Right.
instance.
So-
But we didn't want any runoff from any of their possible contaminated soil stockpiles to go towards that road, and since it had curbing, it would have directed it right to that catch basin.
It's all in here, so they have to level it.
Yeah, no, right, that's right.
It's a nasty one.
So basically, my only presentation to the commission tonight, a recommendation for consideration of issuing an order of conditions, local bylaw only, would be to implement standard conditions for the appropriate management of erodible soils on the site. Basically incorporate the already prepared RAM plan, which has criteria and protocols for handling the site and the excavation of the contaminated soils and remediation. And then just further stipulate that once the site gets finished graded, that it be somehow stabilized, either
Yes.
mulched, seeded, because they don't know what the time period is gonna be for whoever to do redevelopment of the site. So in the meantime, we don't want a barren, non-vegetated site to blow soil.
Well, that's why they, sorry to cut you, that's why they're trying to go faster, so they can get them while it's open, if US Gas want this place so they can put the newer tanks and get it going rather than
Right, but
level it up.
either way, the soils need to be stabilized
Yes,
while
yes,
that
yes,
information is being worked out.
yes, sir.
So that would be the only recommendations I have for issuance of an order.
So incorporate the erosion control.
Basically, our standard
Standard
stipulations
erosion
for
controls.
erosion control on any type of construction
Incorporate
site.
the existing contamination plan,
The RAM plan.
the RAM plan. What does RAM stand for?
Release
Did
abatement.
I have it in
That's right.
anything?
Release abatement
abatement.
mediation or something? Measure.
Release
Yeah.
abatement measure
Measure,
plan.
measure,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Any questions, comments by any commission members?
Typically, they use gravel, just so you know, for stuff like that.
To put over the site, gravel?
Oh, are you talking about
Yeah.
the
when they-
temporary
when they-
finished
yeah,
grading or whatever?
Exactly,
Yeah.
because they'll want it to off-gas if there's anything left and stuff like that, so, just so you know.
And that
Right.
won't blow away, so you
And
don't
that
have to
won't
worry about.
move, right.
Right.
Well, shouldn't move.
What's the distance approximately, do you know, from the edge of wetlands to the edge of this property? Roughly.
I don't specifically know, but using the access, that access easement to McDonald's drive-through, I believe the wetlands flagging I saw was approximately 30 to 40 feet off of that road towards Batchelder Meadow. So the 100-foot buffer zone does come up onto this property, but it's not part of the site that is anticipated for this plan, which is why none of this was filed under the Wetlands Protection Act.
If you go 200 feet from the culvert under Cable Street,
Oh, for riverfront,
yes.
you don't reach this property, nor, well, you may, because I'm not sure where the easement thing is and whether that easement is all on their property or whether part of it's the bank. But again, the riverfront area doesn't come up and get anywhere near in close proximity to any of the activities that are proposed on this project.
Yeah, that's well on the
That seems-
institution property, and it's even,
Right.
you've got a very large setback on that. Because there was even a house there behind, McIntyre's. There was
Well,
actually two houses there, if you remember.
Yeah, my vague recollection is
For the
that when they
wetlands
put the
protection.
emergency generator in, my vague recollection is that was positioned outside
I
riverfront.
think that's right, that's why they put it there, yeah.
Yes,
Why we put
because
it there,
of,
yeah.
because of potential to spill.
That was our, yeah.
Right.
That was why we wanted it, right. Yeah, I think that's right. And that's still several hundred feet from this activity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions, comments?
I guess, yeah, I've got another thought. Seems to me that when I first moved to town, that the swamp behind McDonald's is or was considered another potential well site. As a, I assume the zone 2 we're talking about is the one behind the
Across from behind the ball field.
yeah.
Right.
And yet, I think that that marsh itself is considered or has been considered in the past as a potential water source site, and whatever the term is for.
I don't know, but it's part of this, that's part of the same aquifer that the
It
water is
is, but it
presently
may be an
being.
aquifer in
drawn
its
from.
own right as well. I don't know whether you can use that kind of thing for that purpose, but it would create a closer zone if that were the case, or piggybacked on that. Just a thought.
Has to be
My
established first.
recollection is the town has abandoned any thought of that because of the Ipswich Country Club.
So that could go.
That's on the edge of that aquifer also.
I know, but why should the Ipswich Country Club have a bearing on whether the town abandoned that as a
I
potential?
can only speculate. So all I can say is that's what I have heard. I speculate that is because the, I guess I'd say the septic system for the country club is large enough that it would have an effect on drilling any well there. but
I would think septic, I would think pesticide, I would think anything that has to do with the golf course.
Yeah, that's a big.
There's lots of potential
Fertilizers.
pollutants.
but yet, that's still the same aquifer that feeds our current wells,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't
on
know
the other
exactly
side,
how you
potentially,
time it.
knowing nothing about hydrologically the area. It's
Right.
potentially on the other side of the hydrologic divide, so that could be a
okay.
big difference.
Yeah,
Might
okay,
be why the water
Gotcha.
field's where it is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good point.
gotcha.
All right, any other comments?
I was just gonna say, in terms of permit issuance though,
Right,
again, the activity
we're not doing
is,
any of that.
the activity is demoing the built infrastructure on this site and removal of contaminated soils to obtain,
Right.
hopefully obtain clean site.
Clean site.
Clean site.
One more question I have to ask is, what's gonna happen with the void in the meantime where the tanks were, while the soils are being removed?
Probably be filled with
Is
gravel.
that gonna be filled with gravel? Do we know that for sure?
I do not know that, that's typically what happens.
You know? You know what's gonna happen in the,
Well, actually, when they clean up the site,
Yeah.
I know Noonan's and the state gotta inspect it and all that stuff.
yeah,
And they gotta decide whether, yes, we gotta build it, or we gotta level it out and bring gravel and stuff. That's why I told you, it's right now on the table between US Gas, Wonders Place, or otherwise Mobile gonna come and we'll redo it. That's why we're not even touching the sign yet where the mobile is. They're only gonna take where the building and all that soil all the way back, all out. This is the soil that's
So
coming out.
it's a
Our-
fluid or a dynamic
Our
process.
permit and state requirements.
They gotta make
are
sure
only
it's
gonna
clean, it's
allow-
good, but,
Will only allow clean material to be brought into the
Yes.
site.
yes.
so
And it
like,
won't be gravel around the tanks, I can guarantee. But, it depends on the staging, how the process is gonna go, how the whole thing is gonna work out, whether the tanks are coming in right away, or whether they're gonna let things off gas and stuff like that, so.
Man, can I-
Depends on whether they put in gravel or sand or whatever at the time of that.
And I just wanna brief you guys too, if it is going back to a gas station, the newer system, because I went to the class, it's gonna be fiber tanks,
Yep.
and it's gonna be a concrete wall, no more
Yep.
like before, throwing it on the ground and stuff. It's gonna be
Be a
built,
secondary container.
yes, and it's gonna be built between McDonald's, where the end of that right there,
Mhm.
there where those tanks, they're gonna be seated, not in 5 different angles. They gotta be all
Yeah, it's gonna be a
in one
tank
stretch,
farm.
yeah, and there gotta be a wall
Mhm.
built around it, so even if it leaks or anything, it will stay in that,
Container. yeah.
yes,
The tanks haven't been fully removed at this point?
According to the
fully,
picture.
all of
Yes.
them.
They're gone.
All of them gone, all the pipings, all the stuff, the wirings, everything is gone.
How did you deal with the liquids that were in there? Were they offloaded to?
Actually, they brought the Senate truck, sucks everything up. The fire chief was there, he watched all of it. Then they brought another company that came and washed the tanks, because you can't bring these tanks without cleaning them and get everything out before they haul them out of the
They
area.
usually pump the liquid and then clean the tanks, and they put dry ice on the bottom to get
Yes.
the vapors out.
Yes.
Yep.
And they brought it somewhere, I believe, up in Maine or,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
anything else? So this is a notice of intent, so I would need a motion to close the hearing. And, no, you're gonna have to help me out on this one.
Issue a local order of conditions.
Issue a local order of conditions, there we go.
Basically,
With the
conditions
stated,
as
conditions.
discussed, which
Yeah.
mostly deal with erosion control. The standard condition of an order is clean material being brought into the
Yes,
site.
right,
So,
right, and erosion control and incorporation of
the RAM plan,
the RAM plan.
which has
right,
already been produced.
right. All right, do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and all against? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think he needs a copy of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
So you can get a copy of this too if you just wait a second.
Well, I've got to produce the permit.
Well,
So,
that's,
the
yeah.
signature page is not gonna do it any good.
Call it a conflict, though. It's a stick in the thing.
Is that right?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I mean, just, I know,
Very handy to.
yeah. Still not cheap.
It's the Rimmer Show. I don't know if we've
Okay,
ever seen you here.
we're all set
One
except for
time.
me.
We were just saying, I don't think I've ever seen you here at the same time.
And as soon as I get
Each of you at
those,
various times.
I could
Yeah.
produce the permit tomorrow morning, so, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is the 8 o'clock item. This is the legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with Wetland Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40, as amended in Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, May 26, 2015, at 8 p.m. Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent application filed by David Rimmer, Essex County Greenbelt Association, for proposed construction of a 12 by 12 deck to an existing cottage and excavation of the mitigation area underneath, possibly in the 200-foot riverfront area of the Raleigh River, land subject to coastal storm flowage, salt marsh, and the ACEC at 9195 Railroad Avenue, map 27, parcel 99 in Raleigh. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, we already have a plan. Good. Okay. So this is pretty straightforward. This is the, if you're familiar with the three dwellings that are at the end of Railroad Ave, this is the furthest one to the left as you're coming in,
Right.
the small cottage. And it's simply to add on to the northwest side of the cottage, 12 by 12 deck right here. But in order to provide a little bit of connection to the, right now the tide comes right up under the cottage, it's elevated up here. So we're proposing to just create a little more tile area underneath the deck. And then regrade back up to meet grade here. So it's 5.5 here. Take some of this material out, just as a little bit of restoration, mitigation, and compensation for installing the deck. There's a detail for the deck here will be a minimum of 18 inches above grade. Reality is it'll be mostly 1.5 foot or more like 2 to 2.5 feet above grade once we excavate below it. And there's some erosion control as a temporary measure during construction, and then whatever material is taken from the site will be used elsewhere on site as backfill for some of the potholes and things, provided it doesn't have too much organics in it. Right now it's mostly an area where vehicles have been parking, so it's gravelly, stony material. But underneath, we don't know what's below the top couple of inches. So Dave said he had a couple of sites that he could use it, even if it is a little bit organic, up by the four-bay garage near the tracks. It can be used up in that area as well.
This isn't the house that the Alexanders lived in, I think.
No, it was right next to it.
They owned it, but they didn't live in it.
As I remember, their deck was off the second
Kind of
floor.
wrapped around. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's some photos in case you didn't have a chance to look at it. So the deck, there's a ramp there off the back of the house, and it's just going to be built right off of the existing ramp.
So we simply have a tenant in this building who's interested in doing this project. We own the building, so we're the applicant, but essentially it's the tenant that's interested in the work.
So you don't believe in global warming? How many years before this deck floods?
Or the cottage itself, because it'll be,
It's on stilts.
yeah,
Wood threshold elevation 8.
yeah. And the flood, 100-year flood is 10 there, I think, so.
Is it? You don't
The-
believe-
It's definitely flood.
He's gonna buy some of the used airbags that they use to refloat the Concordia
Oh, okay.
and put them under
Yep.
there
Over
and just
there, yeah.
pump the building up.
All the appliances are on blocks, just in
I mean,
case.
honestly, I've never seen the water come up to the floorboards of this cottage, but certainly it's just on pilings with cross bracing, and it certainly inundates that.
Yeah.
I think the deck is a little bit below the floor surface.
Yeah, they're pulling a step down from the desk.
It's like, one step down, but it's not that far down.
Mhm.
This is,
You need to leave that with us now that you've shown it to the commission.
It's in your packet, it's in the rest.
Oh, it's in
Yeah.
the packet now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know whether there was new or not.
Nope, same ones.
this is a summertime rental?
Yes, yep, it's a, May 15th to October 1st, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The only winterized building is the one that the Alexanders used to live
Yeah.
in, which is rented to the Marine Biological Laboratory that also purchased the Marshview Farm up on Route 1 in Newbury. And they do all the research in the Great Marsh.
They were in last week. Last week.
Yeah.
Last week.
You
That's
probably know them well, yeah.
Any questions by anyone? It's pretty straightforward.
We did get a file number from DEP and they have no comments. Did you get that? That came late in the
Yes.
day, so
Yeah, I called the analyst yesterday. and
thank you.
spoke to him.
Okay. So no,
So there is a memo,
yeah,
and basically, the recommendation, we discussed a couple of the items, our standard conditions regarding having a spill containment kit available all the time, the equipment is down there, as well as appropriate erosion controls anchored in place, because in this particular situation, there's possible tidal flowage that could dislodge some of the erosion. This is in estimated habitat.
so it's still
Yeah,
waiting on
estimated
natural.
habitat for rare wildlife, so we are waiting to hear.
Yeah,
from
we should be,
Natural
I was
heritage.
presuming that's exempt because it meets the exemptions, but I sent them a
Right.
copy of it anyway, so.
Right, so,
So it needs to be contingent upon
Mhm.
Yeah.
some response. Okay. Anything else? Do you want to add this in your memo?
recommendation about gapping the deck boards so that if there was going to be any recolonization by the salt marsh into the excavated area, that it would at least have as much of a chance as possible around the edge of the deck. No delusions about the center of the deck
Right.
maintaining any vegetative cover, but there's still, based on the size of the area, there's still going to be an opportunity for some restoration of salt marsh there, so. Anything else?
So I would need a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions with the standard conditions for a deck project, I think is what you said here. Yeah. And contingent upon receipt of comment from Natural Heritage.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all against? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
counting on you.
Yeah. That's okay, I could be asleep at the switch.
Did I pass this out? I did.
No,
My assistant's on vacation, so I'll probably make some copies of that.
yeah, no. This one is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's a town.
Yeah,
You know, my kids have been by
Yeah.
for years.
It's like going camping up in the woods. You don't have to drive for 3 hours.
Right.
That's right.
If they get really,
You get really
if they
scared
get
and
in
go
range,
home.
you go home.
My kids could bring their bikes, could ride
They
there.
can get there on
Six to
bikes.
4 hours.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm recusing myself from the next item.
This is the 8:15 item, and member Turner is recusing himself. I'm not certain if he's in a butter, but in the interest of,
no, he isn't.
he is in a butter. So this is the 8:15 item. It's a new notice of violation and enforcement order DEP 63-536 for 344 Weathersfield Street, map 18, parcel 5, lot 21-1A, Daniel R. and Jacqueline M. Graham, alteration of 200-foot riverfront area of Batchelder Brook, approximately 4,000 square feet, by cutting and removal of mature trees. And you are here on this?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Graham.
You're Daniel Graham, okay, welcome, Mr. Graham. So, let's see, did you have a memo on this?
No, Mr. Graham has not seen fit to respond and contact the office.
I didn't understand the question.
So,
Okay.
The first thing that he said to me didn't make, but I couldn't make the heads or tails out of it, but whatever. There was just some trees that had snapped off from some wind and the tops were in, and I cut them down because they were a danger.
Okay,
Most of which were dead from the beavers, but there was a couple of live trees.
there's two situations here. Mr. Graham received two communications. He received an enforcement order. He also received a notice of violation. He was required to file an application for an order of conditions, a notice of intent application in 2006 for unpermitted activities, clearing and grading of the 200-foot riverfront area of Batchelder Brook. In response to the enforcement order, he filed the notice of intent application. It was issued an order of conditions. That order's never been closed out to see if it was, conditions were followed or whatever. So we received a notice of violation of the order 63-536.
yeah,
For 63-536, Mr. Graham had a qualified surveying firm, and I believe Rimmer Environmental represented him, produced a plan which clearly delineated riverfront area on the property. The issued enforcement order before the commission this evening is for cutting and removal activities that have taken place in that area, substantiated both by the town's pictometry flown in April 2014, as well as recently confirmed by on-the-ground viewing by myself as I did boundary reconnaissance for the recently acquired former Girl Scout property, which is now town property. As the commission knows, the office is always open, and per the commission's instructions, staff is always available to respond to people's property. Whenever there's hazard tree situations, we have a specific protocol as well as conditions that can be implemented. Mr. Graham has a familiarity with the process, as well as had in his possession documentation showing that these were areas subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. At this point in time, how the trees fell and what occurred is hard to substantiate in most cases. I can tell you that there's at least one photograph there of on the Girl Scout property where the tops of a deciduous hardwood tree, I believe an oak, were sectioned up and left across the stone wall boundary line on the Girl Scout property, which is now town property.
That's this one. That one there.
Well, yeah, the stump is somewhere down in there.
Oh, okay.
If you'll let me come over there, I can get that stuff off of there for you a lot easier.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Feel free to
actually,
participate in the conversation, but.
And what he's talking about before, I thought we were all set. He had met with me and said that I didn't do anything wrong, which cost me $8,000 to find out I didn't do anything wrong, so I wasn't in a hurry to call him again, to spend $8,000 for nothing. And
Well,
I thought that the danger was more important. I had no idea that I had to call somebody to cut a dangerous situation down, or whatever.
well, but you had a plan, you've been before us before, you knew that this was protected area. I mean, I find that a little hard to accept that you
I
didn't
thought
know.
my kids needed the protection more than whatever. It's just, like I said, there was tops that were busted off in the trees from a wind thing. I don't know if it was, whatever it was, busted off the whole row of them going down.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, if they were endangered, you could come in here and you can get an emergency certification and get the.
I was unaware of that. I didn't realize I even had to.
Well, I mean, you hadn't had any prior dealings with this office. I think I'd find that a little more believable, personally.
Prior dealings I had with them, it cost me $8,000 to find out I didn't do anything wrong.
Well,
yeah, sir,
That's what you told me, Brent.
no, I did not, sir.
Yes, you did.
Because an issued enforcement order that's ratified the commission
It
confirms.
expired when, in 2012 or 13 or something?
The enforcement order did not expire, sir. That's why you had to file an application.
Permit or whatever it was.
You filed an application because the commission found that you
I understood it with you. I was
violated the
all set. That's
Wetlands
what you told
Protection
me.
Act.
You told me it was all set, that I didn't do anything wrong. So
well,
you
you're
said-
not all set.
Well, that's what he
and
told
you
me
weren't all
before.
set.
The way the commission says you're all set is they issue a certificate of compliance after an inspection for an issued order of conditions. So again, all the written documentation points to exactly the contrary of what you're saying.
Yeah, I kind of feel it does.
My recollection is it does.
So the 2006 order is still open, it's never been closed out.
Correct.
Okay. But that's not what we're, I mean, that is one problem we have, but that's not
That was a-
particularly,
Again, I
that's
thought
not
we
a
were all set,
difficult
you told me
one.
we were all set, so that's why I assumed.
You know, sir, you keep saying that, and as much as you repeat it, I'm afraid I'm going to call you on it. Unless you can produce some documentation where I actually wrote down and signed my name and said you're all set. All the records before this commission, all the records generated by myself as their professional staff say that you are not all set. They say that you have a confirmed violation on your property in 2006 and that it's never been fulfilled. It's never been closed out, never been a final inspection, there's never been an as-built plan produced. That's
a
not been
problem,
done.
That's a problem.
Like I said, it cost me $8,000, and he told me I didn't do anything wrong. So
But the bigger problem is you've also cut down trees. And you know, maybe you would have gotten an emergency certification for them, but we can't tell because they're gone. And I find it a little difficult to accept the proposition that you didn't know you needed to approach us and ask for that, where
I
you
thought because it
have
was
an
a
open
danger, I
order
thought it was
and
no-
the Rimmers, Ms. Rimmer helped you out with this. You had professional assistance.
I had to hire her to flag the wetlands out, you know, that's what he told me to do.
Yeah.
So in
I didn't wanna
November,
hire, I didn't
on
wanna pay
November
anyone.
22nd, 2005, the commission issued an enforcement order that was for altering clearing of vegetation and grading within the 100-foot riparian zone and the 200-foot riverfront area of Batchelder Brook, and activity within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. The enforcement order that's now been issued and revised as May 19th, 2015, is for alteration of 200-foot riverfront area, approximately 4,000 square feet, by cutting and removal of mature trees, possibly within the 100-foot riparian zone of Batchelder Brook. And more than likely, if I was able to conduct a site visit, I'd be adding on the fact that they were also, a number of them were within the 100-foot buffer zone, bordering vegetated wetlands. So it seems that it's kind of 2005 deja vu all over again.
Really sounds like the same violation as 9 years ago.
It just doesn't have the grading,
Right.
because it was establishing like a ball field or a playing area, if I
Okay.
remember
So
correctly.
not quite, but still, it seems to me you were on ample notice that you can't make alterations in that area, because that's what you did in
Again,
06.
it was an emergency thing, there was like a microburst or something, busted all them trees off, and I thought it was a danger, so I cut them down. You know, that's what it is. You know, and also, like I said, he measured with me when we were there, and he said you didn't do anything wrong, that's what he told me. So it had already cost me $8,000 because I didn't do anything wrong, so whatever more you wanted to cost me, I guess that's what you wanted to cost me. You know?
I don't really
So
want it to
I'm
cost you anything.
ridiculous.
What I want you to do is propose something to correct the problem here.
That's basically corrected itself if he wants to look at it. I mean, it's a very lush area, it's grown back in amazingly, and, you know, if I could get on the other side where you guys, now you're my neighbor on the other side of the brook, if I could get over there, I can get the rest of the wood, the broken, you know, the pieces and stuff out of there. I was carrying them through the brook and it's just not working. I'm old dinosaur.
The removal of the mature canopy of the overstory is exactly what the commission does not want to have occur, or the department, in the 100-foot riparian areas, nor does the removal of the tree, the bole, the branches, the crown, the removal from the area removes all the habitat value from the down woody debris. So, again, the activities that have occurred in there are basically removal of a substantial portion of the mature woody overstory. And by
David
removal,
Kilmarnock-
I mean complete removal. It's not there in
Basically, the
the
moral of the
riparian
story,
zone anymore.
moral of the story is, if a tree falls in the woods in a situation like this, leave it.
And if it
The
meets,
beavers had killed all the trees anyways. I mean,
And
they
if it
created actually an incredible wildlife area. There's 60 or 70 ducks that live down there. There's 3 great blue heron that come down. There's minks. There's all kinds of wildlife out there. So, and birds too. I mean, my wife's quite a birder. There's some rare birds that are down there, I guess.
well, I don't know what to tell you. You seem like a repeat offender from my perspective. Rarely do I see somebody who has this clear notice about the rules of the game and just ignores them.
I don't know how I'm a repeat offender. In the first time
2006.
the neighbor called on me.
In 2006,
In
you did,
2006, the neighbor
essentially,
called on me. They
the
said,
same
he said I
thing.
didn't do anything wrong. In 2006, I wasn't within 100 feet of anything at that juncture.
Well, that was not what the commission found
Not
in
what I
2006. It's not what the members who were members in 2006 remember, apparently. So, and it's not what the record says, it's not what the judgment, the decision says, and it's not what you agreed to do, acknowledged, it's not what you hired Ms. Rimmer to mark the line so you would know what you needed to do and what you needed not to do, and here you are again. You've done essentially the same thing.
I didn't do the same thing. Before I graded the dirt and whatever, and I stayed away from the 100-foot area. He measured it with me. And like I said, it cost me $8,000 then to do nothing wrong because the neighbor called.
he can repeat as much as
I
he
know.
wants to something that isn't substantiated, and in fact, here's the notice of violation letter dated October 27, 2005, that bears my signature. Talks about activities, alteration of vegetation by cutting in the riverfront area. I mean, yes.
It's true you didn't grade this time. I'm not saying you did that, but last time you apparently cut in the restricted area. This time you clearly cut in the
This
same
time I clearly
restricted
did
area.
it because there was a danger, but
Well, and if there had been a danger and you had contacted us and there was a danger, then you would
again,
have
I
gotten
didn't
your
realize I had to.
certification.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
but the problem is we can't tell whether there was a danger or you just cut down the trees. We don't know. We can't know.
My
That's
wife
why
might
you
have
have
some,
to
my
come.
wife may have some pictures, I have to look through them, and maybe I can find you
Well-
some pictures that'll show it. She takes a lot of pictures.
I think you need to,
Well, the recommendation, because it's the 100-foot riparian area part of the riverfront, which is high habitat value, is that there should be a restoration plan filed.
I think you need to consult a professional, sir. I really do. You're both not accepting the seriousness of the situation, and you're not equipped. nor are
I'm
you-
unaware of it.
Well, you are not, you're aware of it now. And you're not accepting it, nor are you equipped to deal with how it's gonna get solved. You need a professional to assist you. I can't.
I don't have the ability to get a professional at this point in my life. My wife's had two times the stage 4 cancer. It's been a whole lot of other stuff going on. Maybe that's why this doesn't seem like it carries as much weight, you know.
Well,
There's quite a, there's a better wildlife area than there ever was. You know, that's the facts. And the facts that I've told you are the facts. Whether it was written down or wasn't signed, or not in his fancy language or whatever, I didn't even know what he was saying when he asked the question. My wife calls the police and asks them to come up because she had a problem. They can't come up to help her because they have a no trespassing signs down the end of the driveway, but 2 of them came up and delivered this letter to me. Ridiculous.
Yes, we did not receive a signed receipt. We did not receive any call to the office. The enforcement order.
A signed receipt wasn't required for anything that you sent me.
Yes, I sent it both first class and return receipt for just exactly this type of situation. So the
If he had
property
delivered by the
owner,
cops, I never got.
property owner was directed to take the following actions: stabilize and protect any disturbed areas with erosion control as deemed appropriate by the RCC, attend the RCC meeting as arranged by May 6th, and submit a signed letter stating intent to comply by May 26th. As well as those further instructions, because of the areas that have been impacted and the fact that there was substantial documentation by direct viewing of myself, as well as confirmed through the town pictometry. The resource area alterations resulting from said activity shall be corrected and the resource areas returned to their original condition. A restoration plan shall be filed with the issuing authority on or before June 15th, 2015. Full restoration and replanting of the altered 200-foot riverfront area of Batchelor Brook in the impacted area with a protective barrier prepared by a qualified wetland scientist for review by the Raleigh Conservation Commission. That's pretty standard recommendations in regards to how to handle the level of alterations that have occurred.
So that was then.
No, this is now. No, this is now.
Then was hardly any better. It's the same thing, except it included grading, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That
And was further back from the brook.
It's not the top of a hill.
Its redeeming feature was that it was further back from
Instead of right near.
Batchelor Brook.
That's right. Sir, again, I just want to reiterate, you really need professional
I can't
assistance here.
afford to do it with them, okay? I cut down a couple trees, that's all I did. Whatever you gotta do, do, okay? See you.
Would this be a case of putting up signs of 100 feet, no cut, no disturb? It was a natural growth, let it go back naturally and just have them leave it? Because those were, as far as I can see.
Did you examine the pictures?
It will take a few years to get those size trees back, but there is advantage to small growth coming up.
Well, the only small growth that's occurring right now is some saplings that have been released that were under the overstory and some sucker growth.
But they'll get bigger.
But remember, he hasn't called the office, he hasn't given me permission to enter the site. I'm only able to talk to you about what could be seen in those photographs. There hadn't been a whole bunch of leaf out when I first viewed the site, so that's why a couple of the pictures show anywhere from 8 to 10 confirmed cut stumps.
Were a lot of those
fairly
trees
mature
beaver killed?
trees.
Right.
He flush cuts them down to the ground, except I've got a couple
No, in the
photographs.
area, in the area, because usually
The
there's not
two,
just one.
the two stumps that you can see, because the new camera you allowed me to buy has a much better telephoto lens on it. There is no evidence of bark removal. The bark still appears to be on the stump in the,
That's this
what I
one.
want to say, well, and isn't there another picture in there too of a stump that's like 2 feet tall approximately? Well, I may not have printed it out.
There's this one here.
Well, most of your beaver kill is not actually done by the beavers, it's done by the high water that they've created.
These are not, these are
Okay.
on a sloped area that if it was beaver impacted, it would have been directly by the animal chewing.
Okay.
But like the one Doug's looking at right here, see, that all has the complete bark on it, and this is the side facing the stream, because I'm looking from the other side of the stream, so I can't tell you that beavers always chew the same side of a trunk of a tree, but usually their first contact is coming up from the stream, and so lots of times the side.
So if we can establish, or if he can show us pictures of trees that were broken from the standpoint of a danger, maybe we could work with him there, but as far as this is concerned, it is what it is.
That's why he needs a professional. There are possible solutions to this for him. They're not gonna be free, but there are arguments to be made, but he's not.
He needs assistance to make them, and I think that's all we can tell him. What do we have to ratify the?
If you
enforcement order?
agree that the evidence that's been presented this evening, even without a site visit, seems to show clear demonstrative proof that there was cutting within the 200-foot riverfront area, especially since we had a plan of the property that clearly depicts those areas as being in riverfront and in a 100-foot riparian area. Yes, we should ratify and confirm the issuance of the enforcement order. I may want to wish to change the date for a restoration plan to be submitted and send it to him, but it doesn't seem like he's interested in engaging the commission in a constructive outcome.
I have one question before any vote is taken, and that is, did you get a clear enough vision of a few of the stumps to see that there was a recent cut? That one there looks
This one
like it-
still has sawdust around the bottom of it, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I was
it's
running out of
definitely-
the red ink was running
Yeah,
out, so that's
okay.
why it looks a little
Okay.
kind of.
There's definitely one in the brown that you can see,
Yeah.
some
Okay.
chainsaw cut.
Yeah, I just,
Right.
just saying,
Yeah.
okay,
And
fine,
I mean, the pictometry has, from April 2014, has a tree that looks like its trunk is entirely intact, laying on the ground, not casting a shadow, right next to the,
yeah,
right
Yeah.
next to the flush cut stump, and showing that only at the top of the canopy was a cut made, so, again, I mean, it's, obviously I can't tell you that the trunk of the tree isn't cracked or something, but what I can tell you is that you can
My-
see the mowed area of his property, and this is all outside the normal area that
I know.
appears to be
I know.
maintained and used as lawn.
I'm not arguing against you,
Oh, no,
I'm just
I'm-
asking for clarification.
Right.
All right, so
Just have a clear mind.
it seems to me we want to, I would suggest ratify the enforcement order. I think we need to extend the time for the mitigation plan to be submitted, just because it's clearly not gonna happen by June 15th, I think is what we had said.
That's, well,
Um,
because originally this was mailed
Right.
on May 1st.
So hopefully he'll come to understand that it's not in his interest to ignore the problem. That's my thoughts.
Do you wish to express any communication in regards that if the plan or whatever isn't submitted, that fining will be
Well,
on
I
the
think
commission's
I'd suggest we
consideration?
leave that for the next time around. I mean, I understand he's frustrated on that. I understand that it's expensive and may not have the funds and all that. But I think maybe once he thinks it over, he'll realize that he really has little choice here but to deal with it, and so I'm hopeful that he will. That's my thought.
So is an agenda item for the next meeting? We'll keep them on the agenda and just
Mm-hmm.
continue the issue.
See if we hear from someone. Hopefully we will. Does that seem sensible to everybody?
We should at least inform them that,
What's down the road?
yeah,
I can include the section from the bylaw that has the
Exactly.
fining.
make sure it's,
and-
you know, he kept on complaining about the fact that he didn't understand.
Well, he also numerous times
I,
made what I
I
consider a
understand.
total erroneous statement, that I told him everything was fine, which of course doesn't,
well, there
I
was
don't
no
know why I
issue.
would have gone through all this paperwork. with
Right,
the
there was
commission.
no order of, you know, was not ended, so we understand that, but, you know, if we can make it as plain as possible.
Was it, just for my own edification, was the notion that you had told him it was fine with respect to the 2006 order that was not closed out?
Right. That's what it
Because,
sounds like.
You know, if it's
Since
just.
he hasn't called the office or had any type of communications with me since
Yeah.
the last site visit in 2006, I'm going to have to say that that must be what he's talking about, but since that is also the only time period when I would think that maybe he did have an expenditure of $8,000, again, we're not privy to what
No.
the cost of professional
But
services are.
the last verbal communication you had with him
No, I didn't even recognize him, that's how long it's been
Yeah,
since
right,
I've
9
seen him,
years.
so I.
was 2006 or 7 or somewhere in there.
2005 was the violation, and 2006 was the issue order.
Okay.
So we should inform them what,
What the possible fines are.
Yeah.
Let's put that in the notice. What do you say for the mitigation plan? We had said June 15th, you want to say, I don't know, July 15th?
Well, our next meeting, our first meeting in July, our next meeting is June 16th, and our first meeting in July is July 7th, so maybe we should say July 7th.
Yep. Okay, that's probably good. Okay, let's see, I need a motion to ratify the enforcement order. I think that's the only thing, and confirm and ratify. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Motion carries. No, I didn't recognize him either. I came back to the incident when we started talking about it. Didn't recognize the name or anything else. And Mr. Turner has rejoined the sitting commission.
All the same.
Here, let's get this one.
it's a shame.
isn't any ad or anything. I did, I think, copy the commissioners on the next agenda item, the notice.
So this is the 825 item on the agenda. New notice of violation of the stormwater management permit number 01/2010 for 164, 166, and 172 Main Street, map 25, parcel lot 32. Ken Hamilton, DBA Infinity Construction, owned by Miken LLC. Failure to comply with permit conditions. And let's see, there's a notice of violations. There isn't a memo.
Behind the notice of violation actually is a memo that explained and put forth the conditions copied out of the permit that this office doesn't, at this point in time, believes outstanding, or there's no record of them.
All right, so let's see, who are you gentlemen?
I'm the owner, Ken Hamilton.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Rich Calman, 4 South Main Street.
Hi, Rich, how are you? Yeah.
I don't know if the chairman, I mean, if your agent, Brent, wants to go first. I know Ken, and he had some discussions a week or two ago, which may have triggered this coming onto the agenda, so I just didn't know if you wanted to say anything first.
Well, I can say what triggered this was the planning board copying notice to this office that they had an agenda item of, I believe, a site visit scheduled for consideration of, I believe, the release of bonded money or something like that. So Mr. Hamilton had been in previously, a few days prior to my seeing the planning board's posted agenda, and mentioned that he was aware that he had to do something about the lack of a storm scepter on the site, which
That's correct.
technically he and us have been aware of that since the October 15th, 2012 memo from Larry Graham of Graham Associates.
No, and I appreciate you
That's
bringing
as
in
much
that
as
it was-
I know.
that it was the planning board. Right.
That's
Let
as
me,
much
let me
as
just
I
say
know.
before Ken speaks for himself, Ken Hamilton does want to settle up with any outstanding matters. This project really set him back financially for 2 years. As a lot of other builders in the business told him, and Windover walked away from this project itself, it financially drained him of everything. And it's taken him a couple of years to even get back to where he could now like to proceed to close up any outstanding matters. So that did trigger him going to the planning board. I know at this stage, he would certainly, if possible, look for any relief from any of the items that were part of that decision. And this is one that I know Ken can speak to more eloquently about, that storm scepter. And I guess it only addresses about 1,000 square feet of the driveway, because the rest of it was graded, Ken can speak, so that the water collects on the parking lot. This only was for the driveway. And it's a minimal area, and certainly Ken was wondering if there could be any view of this board that it wouldn't be necessary to have a storm scepter, and see if a dialogue could occur on that front.
The reason I'm saying that is I just came off a job that was EPA mandated. We put in a storm scepter, one storm scepter in a marine railway yard for 50,000 square feet. Okay, in a working marine yard. I don't believe that, I think a storm scepter for 1,000 or 1,200 square feet might be a little overkill. That's what my theory is.
So my response to that is that the Commission welcomes the fact that you're appearing before them talking about this, because it was just an outstanding issue that didn't seem to be, wasn't being addressed. And so the Commission's concern is, under the Wetlands Protection Act, Mr. Hamilton's project up on Main Street was outside any regulated wetland resource areas, but the discharge of his stormwater was in the 200-foot riverfront area of Town Brook, Townhouse Brook, or Ox Pasture Brook, as the USGS labels it, perennial stream. And so therefore, his professional engineering representation, Meridian,
Not mine, Windows.
well, who's ever,
Windows.
At the time, you were the applicant, though.
Right,
Not,
okay.
not Windover.
All
Windover
right.
was identified as the property
Yeah.
owner. You were the applicant. So cutting to the chase, if a correctly or professionally credentialed, professional engineering firm or engineer wishes to propose some type of other best management practice that will treat the stormwater to the level to obtain the water quality necessary for that discharge in the 200-foot riverfront area, the commission, I believe, would be more than willing to realistically entertain that as a project change and to have that. But right now, my understanding is that there's stormwater discharging from that site, making its way into the riverfront area, that is not of the mandated quality that.
Well, what about all the water that's running down Church Street? That's
Don't
not-
throw your neighbors under the bus, don't
I'm
throw
not
the
throwing
town
anyone
under the
under
bus.
I'm not throwing anyone under the bus.
I'm just saying,
I'm
don't,
just saying this.
don't look to lower yourself to associate with other issues of non-compliance.
I'm not comparing my project to anyone's project. I'm just saying sometimes a little common sense goes a long way.
Well, it does, but we're not engineers.
Okay.
And this particular storm scepter was designed and not built, this designed and recommended by engineers. So if an engineer or someone with the appropriate credentials can tell us that there's a cheaper, better solution,
All right, well, let's.
not even better.
Let's forget
equal
that.
to-
I'm gonna put the storm scepter in, because I don't have time to do all this. So you tell me what you want, I'm gonna do it, we're
But
gonna get on the
Mr.
next
Hamilton,
meeting.
Hang on.
But it might be in your best interest, though, to find out. I mean, if there is another BMP, if in fact the storm scepter is way overkill and it's an expensive piece of infrastructure, why isn't investigating an alternative scenario of getting something that would just adequately treat the amount of water that needs to be treated, that might possibly have a lower cost, and the professional doing the change order might still not reach whatever the expense is of procuring and installing the storm
Well,
scepter
if you
units.
wanna
I mean,
treat water, that's the smallest application that you can buy.
Was it just a sediment though? Is this just a sediment system?
No,
or
it's
what's
a-
the storm system?
It separates, it supposedly separates the grease and the oils and everything else, and,
Well, how about just the sediment, isn't it, aren't you just worried basically about the sediment that's in it? You don't have a tank to a tank and then discharge?
No, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in stormwater that.
That's part of it, yes.
is
But
part
on
of
a
it.
driveway that small, you need to,
Anything that has a vehicle go over it and sit and park is subject to,
but there's no vehicles parked on that driveway, and everything in my
well,
parking
they
lot.
travel on it.
Right, okay.
Everywhere you travel, you leave a little bit of your tire, you leave a little bit of your brake lines, you leave whatever's dripping off the bottom from.
Okay, so what are the other issues that I need to, that you want?
So just to finish with that one, I think the sense of the board is.
I'm putting the storm scepter.
Okay.
I
but
think
if-
the only
but
thing
if
he
you-
thinks that is, it's hard to get an engineer to start to
get
do
it.
anything that doesn't start to run into real dollars.
I get it, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
But if you can propose something that is, that gives us
Equal.
some basis
Right.
for thinking it's okay, we're not gonna stand in, I don't think we're gonna stand in your way. But we can't
I
just
understand,
ignore,
but I don't.
not only is it.
Did Mr. Graham not have a suggestion of an
Yeah, we were gonna
alternative
use a
consideration?
shea product, but I called the shea product, the
Yeah.
shea product's more than the storm scepter.
Oh, is that right?
All right.
Because
So,
that's the thing, Graham was involved in this too, and I forget what his report said, how he worded it, but basically, we have Graham and Meridian saying, put a storm scepter there, so.
You don't wanna mention the catch basin idea.
right, well, why couldn't I put a catch basin that would catch the Church Street water, which will help the town? I've already done the town a great service, if you recall, the ice dam down the bottom of Church and,
that was,
Central Street.
Yes.
Scott and I fixed that for the town, at my expense. I spent the money to fix it for the town. So I'm just looking for a little relief from the town, because basically, because of all the overruns and the cost of this project, I know why Windover walked. So I'm just-
But, well, you didn't finish your the idea of. the
Right, I
catch
was gonna put I'd like to put maybe a double catch basin there to pick up the other side of the street too, and send it underground. We got a 15-inch drain line coming up Church Street. It basically is so overkill. I mean, I've been in this business for 40-some odd years, all right? This is like the biggest overkill thing I've ever seen for drainage.
Yeah,
I'm not an engineer either, but I just think that when you can put 50, and the EPA approves a 50,000 square foot, and it's direct discharging into Gloucester Harbor, all right?
I get it. I
We've got
understand.
1,000 feet of driveway, and we wanna put a $6,500 storm scepter in, which that's how much they are, probably more than that now, but.
I can't believe, Rich, that there isn't some engineer that can't give you what little we need for less than $6,500. I mean, that's a,
Right, but he's gonna charge me $2,000 or $3,000, okay? Then I gotta go buy the structure, cause we gotta put a structure in there.
you gotta put something.
We're already there, we're at $6,500.
And that's for you to say. It just seems to
Right.
me like there might be a cheaper.
I was just looking for a little relief, I see I'm not gonna get it, so let's move on and let's figure out, I wanna resolve
You
this.
do remember the fact that the commission does not write the regulations.
No, I'm
that
not
the
arguing with the
commission-
commission, Brent, okay?
Well, I'm
not
just saying,
arguing.
you're-
I just wanna
you're saying
know
the commi-
exactly what you want, so at the next meeting, I'm gonna have everything lined up and done for you. I've hired Donahoe surveying, he's gonna pick up the balance of the as-built. We have most of the as-built done by Meridian,
Okay.
but Donahoe's gonna finish it, and I'm gonna submit it.
So you got these two people working for you right now. At least speak to them and say, can you just certify that a so-and-so would work here? Draw the as-built that way, you know, and come to us first, but, and then come back to us and say, can we just put in and I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but it's gotta be less expensive than this.
But if it was a catch basin or something like that, that's about half the price of the storm scepter.
I understand,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
gotta pay the engineer
But
to
you-
design it.
You've already got
It's
engineers.
a
and
catch
that's-
22, you know what I'm saying?
But that's also the only way that all of us know that you're compliant with the
I'm gonna
regulations.
comply, I'm
because
gonna put
that's
the
what we
storm
have to
scepter
do.
in.
I can't, I mean,
I just wanna know, what I have to do on top of that, so at the next meeting, we can get this done.
Let's move on from the storm scepter.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we need, well, Brent, why don't you?
Needs to apply for a certificate of completion. You need to, well, and so the maintenance plan, so I'm not sure whether that gets affected by this, but that might possibly need to be tweaked if there's double catch basins of oil and grease separation as opposed to the storm scepter. Need to make sure that the site is all stabilized. All the erosion control and everything was taken out of the site without.
We were all completely vegetated, everything was grown
Okay,
in,
well, just.
Well, your crushed stone didn't grow very well.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's.
Remember you had a conversation with
It's
me
veg-
about
it's-
not putting down vegetation in a number of areas so that you could put crushed stone.
It's stabilized, right?
Right, but all I'm saying is that we never did, you and I
Well,
never
let's
did a
do it.
walk around.
Let's do a walk
when
around,
everything supposedly got
I
done.
invite you to my project, and let's do a walkabout.
Great.
So
Okay, well, that's number
that was 37.
37. No site inspection prior to, so we need a site inspection. Brent is very available. It's not like the site's very far from right here.
Right.
So we need to know what's happening with the roof runoff, system with that.
A lot of this will
And
get
then whether
addressed
the
with the
operations
site
and
visit.
maintenance plan is, if that's gonna meet what ends up being finally installed, because it was prepared based on the storm scepter, but if something else gets put in, it needs to match that, so it's really just kind of
Right,
meshing
No, I
everything
understand,
together.
yep.
That's why we're here, and I was coming anyway, you know, it's a shame that we had to get a violation notice, I was coming anyway, but,
Well, you didn't get an enforcement order.
no.
You got,
Well, that's
you
good.
got a letter that just basically told you what you already knew, and that was that you weren't quite compliant with the permit and you hadn't closed it out.
Well, I'm
That's
here
what you
to,
got.
I'm here to comply.
You were on the list. You started with the planning board, but
No, I
he was also
understand.
coming.
And incidentally, the storm scepter might be in their requirements too. You wanna make sure that it isn't.
I'm just
if you're gonna
putting it
change
in.
it. Well,
Just-
okay, so.
I don't even, I'm
So
not
you,
gonna,
so you came here, you got something out of this meeting, which is, if you wanna propose something other than a storm scepter that makes any kind of sense, you're not gonna meet opposition from us.
okay,
And if you wanna put in a storm scepter, you're not
okay.
gonna obviously.
It's up to me, and
Basically,
engineer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
And,
gotta have somebody that
I
says,
I
oh yeah,
understand.
that'll work just as, that'll do what it needs to do, excuse me.
Right,
Do what it
okay.
needs to do.
Yeah,
and you need a walkthrough with Brent, which will effectively check off a lot of these things.
okay.
Okay.
Well, can we set that date right now?
Sure, it's up to you though, as to whether you wanna have that occur after you get these other moving pieces.
I
Taken
wanna do
care
the
of.
walkthrough, so you can tell me what you do and you don't
Well, I'm
like.
still gonna have to do one though, after you get whatever you want installed there, and an as-built plan is.
I understand, but
Oh,
in the
okay,
meantime,
all
I
right.
can fix
Yep.
whatever you don't like.
Yep, okay.
So it can be a punch list.
Right,
And
exactly.
after
And
everything's
I can
installed, then
work
we're
on
fine
it while
again.
cause I'm gonna have to order the storm scepter,
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
can,
understood.
I can work on whatever Brent doesn't like.
Yeah.
And then the next meeting, hopefully we'll have this all resolved.
Yep.
Can I ask a somewhat related question, and maybe it's totally unrelated, but you're going to be doing the townhouses across Church Street? Is that
No,
correct?
that's Clark Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Forgot
that's
it.
right.
Thank you.
I'm getting beat up enough in Raleigh.
Do you wanna set a date, or no, you're not gonna do that?
Just
Further-
call Brent.
okay, just call.
Yeah, I'd
Really,
rather
All right,
coordinate
yeah,
with
we
the
are-
county.
I understand.
We're so close to the site here that you can fit it in between phone calls almost.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. You wanna come back in 3 weeks? I don't see why not. You know, you can certainly get all this done in 3 weeks.
I'll try.
If you want. Let's put it on for 3 weeks from now. If,
And then we can give you an update.
yeah, if you're not,
You're not ready to
and if you,
continue.
if you don't wanna come in, just let us know, we'll put it off
Okay.
another 3 weeks. I mean, don't waste a trip just to say I need more time.
Hopefully I don't.
So, hopefully you don't.
I'll call you, tomorrow.
Okay.
Good enough.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
See ya.
See you, Rich.
Bye.
So may I have, I would suggest a motion to continue this matter
Yep.
to the meeting of June 16th.
Do I have a motion?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All against? Right, the motion carries. Apparently. Anybody spoke up? Except you. I saw everybody nod.
Well, you.
Everybody nodded.
I have to agree with him, some of this stuff is overkill.
Oh, I agree. But we didn't, wasn't our
Yeah,
design.
well, it's not even
I'm a
that.
contractor, Brent.
Well, I
Totally right.
understand that, but.
Really, it'll be an easy decision if he just proposes.
I mean, he gets stamped plans,
I know.
you know,
What are we
stamped
supposed to
plans
do?
are what gets reviewed, that's supposed to be
Stamp
what's
plans
built.
cost money.
Right.
Yeah, but we can't change those.
We still-
Well, the
we
time
still
to
need-
change something like the storm scepter sort of occurred when the design came out. I mean, that was the time when the question should have been raised, do I really need this thing? So,
Perfectly good point he raises.
no, absolutely.
You won't get any pushback from us, but he just has to do that. All right, 8:35 item. New notice of violation stormwater management permit 08-2013 for 237 Dodge Road, map 9, parcel lot 21, residence at Carriage Pines LLC, Ralph Di Giorgio, failure to comply with permit conditions. Hi.
Good evening.
Right. Let's see if I can find the right one here. There we go. So,
Brent?
Yeah,
one of you. go.
Greg and I already talked a little bit, so.
I'm sure you did.
So this again is kind of before the commission for exactly the same reason.
Yeah, I can see that.
Planning board,
And why
planning
doesn't-
board noticed that there was going to be
Yep.
a site visit in anticipation of a request from the permit holder for release of bond monies or whatever to establish a certain completion point in the project's phasing or what stages or whatever. And this office hadn't heard anything at all since, I think it was like September or something of 2014, I'm not exactly sure. And so therefore, there ended up same thing, notice of violation, there's a backup memo with a number of things on there. The most significant thing that Mr. Hockmuth and I talked about today is the fact that the stormwater basin, part of its functioning is due to the establishment of a planted wetlands plant community in the bottom of the basin that is supposed to do some of the pollutant uptake and capturing of nitrogen and phosphorus and those types of stuff. And
Right.
we didn't even have anything in our records that ever showed they sent any type of report in here, oh, we put the plants in, oh, this is all done. And we had put in the condition about if it was done before June 30th, there was supposed to be a monitoring report, and then another monitoring report in September, or if it was just put in prior to September, there needed to be a September. I mean, it was the typical type of thing. They were planting a plant community, but it wasn't for replication. So it didn't get into too much about establishment and species composition and things like that, but it was looking for something. We did it, we've looked at it before it goes into the winter, and we look at it again when it comes out of the winter to see what survived, what we lost, and if something needs to be done to it.
Right.
Check-ins, so to speak.
And it sounds like that's where the communication got lost. The plants were put in, and we have been watching them. A lot of them disappear and get out-competed by others. It's a giant sandbox out there, and especially with this spring, it's tough to get anything going. But what is there is doing good. I think we have about around 80 to 85% of the species that were planted actually surviving. Some of the stuff that was put in probably shouldn't have been put in. Soft stem bulrush is not going to do well out there. The blueberry bushes are struggling, but I think they'll get there. But the long and short of it, I did talk to Brent, and then I talked to the applicant, Ralph DiGiorgio, and they do want to comply. And it sounds like the biggest thing missing here is just communication and monitoring. So what I told Brent we could do, because we do have photos at the office, and we could do a report now, talk about when the plantings were done, what they looked like last fall, what they look like now. And I already know some work needs to be done. It's not ready for compliance yet.
Yeah.
We identified some areas the Monday before we got the notice. I went out for the spring inspection, and it wasn't ready, so I met DiGiorgio's crew out there, and they recorded everything that I documented, and it sounds like a lot more than it really is. There's a lot of areas that need some more loam and seed, and it's mainly in the area around the basin, and then on top of that, the monitoring. We have as-built. I didn't know this when I talked to Brent today. We have completed an as-built. The pond is sized adequately. We'll be able to report that in our report. Inverts are fine. The granite monuments were put in along the CR, so I can talk about that and include some photos. And so they're close, maybe this fall. I think it all depends on when we get some rain and what the plants look like this fall. But realistically, probably one more winter, maybe look at it again next spring. We'll do a report now, this fall, and then next June. That's the way I see it.
Unless this fall exceeds your expectations, and maybe then you'll apply then.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of weeks of rain,
Yeah.
it's gonna look like a different place.
That's the way my yard feels.
You know, before, I just started with this company last November, and my brother-in-law lives in the road after the golf course. And every time I go over there, I tell him they built that pond too low, it's always got water in it. I didn't know that was the intent. So I think the water is there. I think it's just a crummy year to look at it.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Now, what Greg just talked about, the granite bounds or granite monuments, it's technically not a requirement of the stormwater permit. But what that was my initiative in regards to dealing with the CR and realizing that based on their grading and all the maintained turf lawn out there with both the residences and with the golf course, that there wasn't going to be any demarcation of where the CR ended and where the project in the backyards began. And so I had previously had a conversation with at least one of the Ralphs, if not both of them,
Yeah, they were both there.
about putting some markers in, because actually I think it is mentioned in the conservation restriction document. But since they were doing the project and finishing up the grading of the back lawns of all these buildings, it seemed like it was appropriate to sort of tie the two things together, as well as the fact that we could see where they were and see if it would actually make sense. Because the idea was not to have to hire a surveyor later on in case any question came up about where the boundary of the CR was in relationship to these residences now for people residing here in Raleigh who do not have the same restrictions on some of the activities in their backyards that are in place with the golf course.
And those will be shown on the as-built that's ultimately submitted, and the granite.
The granite part.
Yeah, enough to ruin a deck mower if somebody tried to go over them.
Right. That's the rule.
Right.
Now Greg and
They'll only do that once. Yeah.
Now Greg and I also had a good conversation about the fact that he pointed out constructively that I could have written the requirement for the monitoring of the wetlands basin a little better. And I'm thoroughly concurred with him.
Is that what I said?
You didn't, but indirectly you were saying, well, how can I tell they were supposed to do this? And I'm like, well, because the monitoring period says June 30th, and obviously if they haven't put it in by June 30th, they don't have to do a June 30th report, now do they?
There was no technical requirement for an initial monitoring inspection report, but as by default it was there,
Yeah.
if you read it carefully. But we're not here to argue. I mean, it needs
You're
to be
right.
monitored.
No,
and-
I get it. So what do you want to do? Do you want to, well, you're going to submit the.
He's
you're gonna
working
submit
on
the
a report.
Yeah,
What
and
do you
they're
wanna
ready to
do?
fix the areas. We
Yeah.
got the cease and desist, so I told them to stop.
Yeah, okay.
But if we get the green light, I can get them out there and,
Okay, and you'll finish your report, your sort of interim report.
yeah, we can finish
Yeah.
that now. I want to do a walk with Brent just to make sure there's no other areas that I missed.
Yeah, that would be the best thing, you know.
And then
this-
what? Put this, I mean, there's no way you're gonna be ready to ask for a certificate of compliance sooner than fall.
I wouldn't think so.
Wouldn't think so, unless
Um,
it suddenly starts raining
I'm not,
and keeps raining.
I'm not sure that we necessarily, it's certificate of completion because it's for a stormwater permit. I would imagine that since it's a local bylaw, unless we said something about how we couldn't do a partial certificate of completion, I would think that the request would be for us to consider some type of partial, especially if they got the as-bills done. That way, the planning board would have something that would let them know where the status is with quote-unquote either what's been finished or what is yet to be finished with the commission. And since both boards are interested in the functioning of that stormwater basin, it's probably applicable to both of us.
We could submit everything, and if the only thing hanging is the actual survival of some of the species that were planted through the monitoring, that would be ideal. We could have everything in place with the exception of the monitoring.
All right,
So I guess we'll just see what it looks like and
Okay.
kind of go from there.
all right. So you don't want to continue this to a date certain, because you're just not really clear what the best date certain would be?
No, I mean, either way, we're gonna submit the June report
Right.
and probably a September report. And if it
Right.
looks like we're ready to ask for compliance in September, we will.
All right.
If they decide to ask for some sort of a partial between now and then,
Mhm.
we may do that too.
Okay, all right. That makes sense.
So I would suggest an open continuance.
Yeah.
With the I would say with a firm requirement that at least by the July meeting that we've received whatever type of interim report they can give us that gives us sort of starting date of the basin and what its current status is.
And the as-built.
Yep.
The things you can already know you can do.
Yep.
Well, the as-built sort of needs to come with the request for certificate of
Well, right.
completion.
No, I understand, but you can sort of,
Yeah.
it can, the report can include the status of the as-built.
Yeah.
Mounds, all that stuff.
The only thing that I have a question about, and I didn't get an answer before I left the office today, was whether or not the surveyors picked up the granite bounds yet. I know they're in, but I'm not sure we located those yet.
Okay. Okay. So, you're on a notice of violation, right? So,
Right.
I guess we don't really need to do anything except just continue this to an open date, right?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would suggest.
I have a question.
Yep.
My understanding, and I didn't know this at the time, but that basin is supposed to be an active bioremediation?
So it's
Device?
supposed to be a pocket wetland
Yeah.
within the basin.
Yeah.
But credit-wise, if that was grass
Right.
versus the species that we planted, you don't get any additional credit by establishing the species that we proposed, which I was kind of surprised to hear. I thought if you put something more diverse in there, you might get a little bit more credit, but I
Well,
was,
So, I understand the credit, but there is a specific list for biomass hydrocarbon remediation, active biomass active remediation. That, I do not know that list, but it is a specific list of particular plant species.
right.
And if that BMP is supposed to be doing that, and you mentioned that at least one species has been removed because it hasn't established itself, then it's
Well,
possible.
it's just moved. It's moved from they have these little fingers in the
Yeah,
bottom of the
yeah,
basin.
I've seen it.
They've moved from the fingers to the bottom of the wetter portion of the
They
basin.
wanted, they
might
wanted
be a
to
good
keep their
thing.
toes wet.
Yeah.
So I think everything's trying to figure out where it wants to grow.
Okay, so that might be a good thing, because those particular species, to remove hydrocarbons, have to be specific. And the only reason I know this is because I did research on this particular.
Okay.
And I don't remember, that was many, many years ago, I don't remember any of the species list, but I know there was lots of grass, and lots of specific types of grass. Cat and nine-tails in particular were one.
Yeah.
So, and I know I've seen those.
Yeah,
in
they're
that-
starting to come in the wettest portion of the basin.
Yeah. So, my point is, you kinda gotta, if that's what this BMP is supposed to be doing, and you have to make sure these particular plant species that are specific for this type of remediation exist and establish themselves. Whether they moved is up to the plants.
Right. If there's any void spaces that need a particular type of species on it, we'll make sure that it's growing there. We may need to scarify some areas to establish a different type of grass. I'm
Yep.
guessing something maybe a little drought tolerant in some of these areas.
Probably for that particular area.
But we'll make sure they have the same type of nutrient uptake ability.
Cool,
I'll look into that.
very cool, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we just need a motion to continue the matter generally.
Date uncertain?
Yep, to a date uncertain.
Open continuance.
Open continuance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Greg.
Yep. Brent, I'll be in touch.
Thank you, sir, yes.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And just because we do a site visit doesn't mean I have to meet your brother-in-law.
You just mentioned his residence there, or lives near there.
Where are we on the playlist?
We're at Bonner. I don't think anybody's coming on Bonner, right?
No.
That's what he told us. All right, so, but there was a memo?
No.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, there is a memo.
Yeah,
There's a notice and
I sent
some stuff,
I
yeah.
sent the email around that was the
Yep.
report of the
Yep.
final site visit,
Yep.
and I figured
Yep.
that
Yes, it
will
did.
kind of take the
Yep.
place of.
No, it kind of explained everything. So this is the 8:45 item on the agenda, new notice of violation of the WPA wetland bylaw and conservation restriction. at 19 Arrowhead Circle, map 23, parcel 19, lot 8, Mark F. and Caitlin M. Bonner. Alteration by cutting vegetation and placement of fill in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands and impairment of the stormwater basin. And there's a, as Brent just said, there's an email that summarizes Brent's efforts at the resolving this enforcement matter.
Can I just ask where Arrowhead Circle is? I'm not quite sure.
Wild
That's the,
Pastures.
Wild Pastures.
Yeah.
Estate
Oh,
stuff with-
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So,
And this is the easternmost stormwater basin. And
swale.
his landscaper decided to basically use the water quality swale portion of the stormwater basin as a staging area for his old mulch and soil and his new mulch being put in.
And that wasn't good for the water quality swale, I bet.
It kind of formed a dam and it made 75% of the water quality swale not available to any water that might possibly make its way into the basin, although we have not had precipitation
There is
recently,
no
so it
water,
hasn't been a problem.
No, that's true. There's
Someday
no
there
water.
will be. It's going to rain again. Right, so basically, Brent, to summarize your email as I understand it, his initial reaction was pretty negative, but then you got back in touch with him, you went out, you had a site visit, and established what you just said, which was that his landscaper had been doing that. And the last thing in the email is that the landscaper in question, Mr. Foster, was going to have it all pulled out by the end of the weekend. Do you?
I did not
You don't
receive
know.
any type of communication at all or a voicemail message. I did download other voicemail messages off our system here in town, so I believe the voicemail was working. But Mr. Bonner had also said that he was going to be traveling, so it's entirely possible that he
Right.
is traveling and just.
Okay. But
So
you-
I could certainly, we have access to
Right.
the drainage system, because there is a drainage easement that goes between Mr. Bonner's yard and the abutting house, which allows me to access the basin, so I just didn't have, I didn't have the chance, or the time today to go over there, which
Okay.
is a little
So,
pressed here.
what you told him, according to your email, is that if the landscape materials are removed and you verified it, then the matter could probably be considered resolved. And I do think that would be the way we would look at it, but you haven't been able to verify it yet.
Right, and the cut brush that was there, he stated that that wasn't from his landscaping project, and I believe that that the weathering and the age of the cut ends of the brush confirmed, his supposition was that it came from them doing a maintenance, trimming around the edges of the basin, that it had started to grow in, which makes sense. They're all small sapling size, maybe a half an inch at the most, 3/8 of an inch stem diameter. The project in that stormwater basin was constructed in 2005, just prior to the 2006 Mother's Day event. So that's kind of how old Wild Pastures is, so it wouldn't be inconceivable that one needed to go in and trim the brush there at some point in time, and that Mr. George Galakis, in his responsible management of the stormwater facilities, probably had a crew go in there and cut the brush, and they just happened to pile it over in those couple of places.
Okay. So it sounds like that what we should do is just continue this, and so you can verify.
Right.
Probably go away next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah, so I'll try to do a verification, and if I may, I would like to, instead of taking any more commission time and any more staff time on this, I would request that if I can substantiate the removal of all the landscaping materials back down to what is supposed to be the established original grade of the water quality swale, that I'd be allowed to send a communication to Mr. Bonner, just saying that the issue is resolved and we appreciate and would look towards the future where he and his subcontractors don't use the stormwater basin as a staging area for materials.
That sounds reasonable. Everybody agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll come back to you if there's some complication.
Do you need a vote on it?
Yeah, I would like to have, just a motion directing me to take that action.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What's that? That is that. Okay, so now we have, this is the end of the regular agenda items. Do we, status reports, permanent enforcement, do we have anything in that?
Just a couple of things there.
Yeah.
Are just waiting.
This was mine. But she was welcome after.
So I had a discussion with Mr. Georgialakis today and provided him with a map as to where 4x4 posts needed to be installed along the roadway system, marking where the trails start. Because otherwise, you don't really know where the trails come in. Because then there's a manicured, maintained lawn area in the easement with the...
Where are we talking about?
Wild pastures.
Specifically Wild Pastures Project.
Oh, okay.
So I sent this to him post-location because I realized that it's fine for me to mark the trails in the woods, but
The
if
keys are?
Huh?
Is this where the keys are?
possible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not, we still haven't established that. Mr. Roscoe did come out and accompany me with his metal detector, and we couldn't find them.
Oh, that's where the keys are.
That's where the keys are
Probably
somewhere.
will never establish where the keys are.
And nobody else.
No.
So anyway,
50 years
upon
from now,
erection of
someone
those
finds
posts, this will complete the obligations for that, because
Okay. Well,
it's fine to mark the trails, but if people don't know where the trails start,
Right.
it,
Could be a problem.
well, it just would impose some difficulty on them being utilized. Although I did hear substantial opinion about how, based on ticks and everything else, that no one in their right mind should walk out in the woods, but it wasn't quite expressed that way, but obviously there's
It would be the same for Hunsley Hills.
the wild things.
And where else in Rome?
Yeah,
Pretty much. Near a tree.
in my backyard.
This is tech-free.
So, Brad Street Farm Conservation Area. We believe that all final edits requested by EEA have been complied with, and the fully signed document is in their possession for signing by the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. In conjunction with that, on Friday, I went and met Jen Tupamala, who works for Mass Audubon in their Land Information Systems Assistant is her title. She does the GPS on the trails. And we did some reconnaissance and have, we believe, picked out a place on the Brad Street farm to relocate or to establish a trail. And actually, Doug doesn't have to be the only one. See that. So she's preparing the baseline report, which all conservation restrictions need, a document that gives you basically what the sort of as existing conditions of the property when you put CR in place. And as the commission knows, we had the issue with the wetlands violation, and I made a temporary trail. We believe we found a more appropriate route for the trail mostly on top of the berm that forms the pond, makes it a farm pond. It's bermed, because my little direct overland route went through two places that were pretty mucky from surface runoff.
That was a tough walk through.
Tough walk, yes. Well, I, again, only did it to provide access for us to view the violation because of
Right.
the issues involved. This route would need to be cleared out, but 95% of it avoids any bordering vegetated wetlands or runoff areas. It's just two little places that more than likely could be planked without great expense.
Okay.
And this is becoming part of the baseline report.
What are those, like these little dog legs?
It's just to stay up
The
on the high
ones that you
ground.
say they need catwalks?
Is that the crest of the hill? Is that?
Yeah, that was, well,
That was bulldozed out.
the habitat value of the pond is diminished by having a trail right beside it.
Yeah.
And so it was easier going and provide a little variety to the landscape and sort of gave you the opportunity to come in with sort of two good views of the pond and then walk through the woods and end up sort of going around it. And seeing woods and not bothering anything that might be on the shores of the pond by a lot of human, you know,
So
traversing back and
where are
forth.
those places that you said were gonna be catwalked, or
Well, right where,
right here and here? I
let
assume?
me orient myself. Right here where we first come in, there's sheet flow surface runoff, so it's a little mucky right there, right actually by that corner. But then this dries out. When you come back here, it's unclear whether some of the farm pond water goes across the top of the berm, because it is making its way through the base of the berm over here. There's an area
wet.
that goes into, that's all forested wetlands, yeah. It's actually right where the Phragmites is,
Huh,
where the Phragmites is.
follow the Phragmites.
So we make a little trail through the Phragmites.
You're staying well away from Mr. Sabatini's property?
Yes,
Yes. Short answer to that.
who we haven't heard from, by the way, but anyway.
That's another topic.
Another time.
All right, that's good. That's great.
That's pretty much it.
Good for you.
Vanessa and I have been in contact, and we're about to get back in the saddle on the CR for the former Girl Scout property.
Okay.
Which actually is helped by the completion of EEA's second round of requested edits. One of them was directly applicable to what we were talking about with the assignability of the proposed CR with you folks. So,
Okay.
there's two different ways to get Irene's input. Let her keep marking up one that she's already got and just look at it. That's it, I think.
All right. So that brings us to
A request to go into executive session, specifically for the, one of the purposes under the open meeting law to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
So, based on my understanding, I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
respect to the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and I think this has to be a motion that is voted on. I forgot about you, right?
We have to do a roll call vote,
Do a
but we
roll call.
also have to, the chair also needs to state whether the public body will reconvene in open session at the end of the executive session.
Right, yeah, that's right. So I believe we've reached the end of our agenda items, so the commission will not reconvene in public session at the end of the executive session. That the executive session will end the meeting. Okay. And do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Now, it has to be a roll call vote.
Yeah.
You have to state your name and then.
Still have to have a motion though, so there is a
Well,
motion. So yeah, now will you poll the members? Oh, I will. How about that, Mr. Garner?
Bob Gardner, yes.
Mr. Page, yes.
Dave Delmonico, yes?
Kurt Turner, yes?
Sam Strife, yes.
And Doug Watson, yes. So we are now in executive session. Which means the video needs to be.